Hi, I'm Tyler Battaglia, and I did my Game Changers project on handheld consoles. Handheld consoles made an impact on the game industry because it made gaming convenient and portable. Some of the first handheld games that were developed was Mattel's sports games. The most popular sports game was football, but they also released baseball and basketball. One of the first handheld consoles that was made was Milton Bradley's Microvision. This device was the first to feature the use of cartridges. The Microvision controls varied with the use of each cartridge. The Microvision lasted about 2 years, due to a screen that could rot and easily damage cartridges. The next console to be released was Nintendo's Game & Watch. According to legend, Nintendo engineer Gunpei Yokoi came up with the concept after observing a bored Japanese man playing with his pocket calculator while traveling to work. This console only featured one game, but allowed multiplayer by pressing Game B. Next up is the Nintendo Game Boy. This was one of the most successful handheld consoles ever. This device changed portable gaming as we know it today. The original Game Boy featured a 160 by 144 pixel screen with an impressive 4 shades of gray. Nintendo made a brilliant move when releasing the Game Boy in 1989 by bundling it with Tetris. Other games that were released were the already popular Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. Game Boy went on to sell 1 million units in 1989 and sold 4.4 million by 1991. Nintendo would go on to upgrade versions of their Game Boy. The first upgrade was the Game Boy Pocket, which was smaller than the original Game Boy but featured a larger screen. The next upgrade was the Game Boy Color, which now allowed games to be played in color instead of black and white. Even though games were now in color, it didn't mean that the older games could not be played on it. Nintendo made it so that the Game Boy Color would be backwards compatible with other Game Boy games. Entering into the new generation of consoles was Sony. In 2005, Sony released their PSP, which stands for PlayStation Portable. This device featured great graphics and was the only console to use an optical disc format instead of cartridges. The PSP delivered a home console experience on the go. Sony became an instant competitor with Nintendo in the handheld market, but the high price tag and lack of signature games made the PSP fall behind Nintendo. To compete with Sony, Nintendo released the Nintendo DS. The design of this looks very similar to the Nintendo Game & Watch. However, the lower screen of the DS is a touchscreen, and there are 4 buttons instead of 1. The games would switch from cartridges to smaller memory cards. A special thing about the DS was the fact that it appealed to everyone. With titles like Brain Training and Nintendogs, the DS was purchased by everyone and not just gamers. My favorite handheld device would have to be the Game Boy Color, and my favorite game for it would have to be Pokemon Blue.